I feel like a lot of people are starting to use streaming somewhat in place of radio. I'd say radio is like, as far as just if you're just going to get in your car and just listen to music, some people these days might turn on the radio, but if you're a Spotify or an Apple iTunes, you can just turn on that and listen to some playlist that's generated by them or some radio station that's generated by them, and you don't have to have any ads. So a lot of people are switching over to that. Well, when that happens, the record label and the artist are getting paid off of that, not just the songwriter. The songwriter is also getting paid. But see, on radio play, only the songwriter is getting paid off of that. And so record labels have...
Know that?
Yeah. So record labels have never made any money off of radio play directly. All the money, all the royalty money goes to songwriters and publishers.
Welcome to the Lone Star Play Podcast. I'm your host, Patrick Scott Armstrong. Join me and a famous guest every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We discuss their career, life, food, Texas, and everything in between. Let's get started.
Over your left, there's something hanging there. It's like a
That's a fox skin.
Fox. I love that. That's cool. That is,
yeah.
And where is that? Where are you at right now? Like, where are you hanging out?
Well, I'm hanging out in my backyard, and I've got it set up to do stuff like this and videos and stuff. So the rest of the room doesn't look as cool as this looks. You know how that goes. I've got
That's my room right here. Trust me.
Yeah. So this is my little backyard oasis where I have my office and I have my video area here, and then I have all the merchandise for our band. So when people order stuff off the website, that's me fulfilling those orders. In fact, shucks, I haven't ordered today. I haven't fulfilled yet. That's right. And then, this is where I write my songs and get away from the family.
Yeah, totally. What part of
they won't barge in on us?
Yeah. What part of Texas are you in?
We live in McKinney, Texas, which is north of DFW, little ways. It's my wife's hometown where she was born and raised. And
oh, nice.
Yeah, we moved here to be
over the years.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, when we were dating, we used to go to Frisco to make out because there was nobody there. And now there's like this huge mall right about that same spot.
That is so fun. Yeah, for Dallas, I mean, I grew up in DFW myself, actually, and it has changed. And I mean, it has grown. So I grew up in a little town called Euless, which we used to jokingly call Useless, Texas.
Right.
Which it was nothing back when I grew up in the 80s. I mean, nothing, just a little nut blimp. And now if you drive through Euless, I mean, you don't know where all the other towns stop and start, actually. Colleyville, Grave, like it's just all together. But yeah, McKinney as well, Frisco, like you said, they're all just blowing up, man. Does that mean more opportunities to play music for you when things like that happen? Is that what that means?
It does, yeah. Actually, we moved back here in 2008 after spending 9 years in Nashville, and one of the first things I discovered is that the whole Dallas-Fort Worth area is really one of the biggest markets in the country for country music, as far as just number of fans around here that are into that. Yeah. And that it's actually a great place to be from, to do what I do. There's lots of gigs, lots of venues, lots of good quality venues. Some people, I think, feel like it's hard to draw a crowd here if you're not from here or whatever, and maybe it's like that everywhere a little bit, but I think there's a real healthy music scene. I was actually very pleasantly surprised when I moved here because after 9 years in Nashville, we lived on Music Row. We were 5 minutes from downtown. We were 5 minutes from Vanderbilt. I could walk to every record label and publisher in town practically, and I was afraid that McKinney would just kind of feel like boring suburbiaville, but it's really got a good music scene here. Lots of people that I respect, lots of cool venues, and so it's ended up being um, kind of nice to be a medium-sized fish in a medium-sized pond.
That's a good way to look at it. Yeah. Oh, that's very interesting. Yeah, I can't imagine the the juxtaposition between Nashville, like you said, where you were living, and then going to McKinney. But I'm glad to hear that McKinney. Doesn't Randy Travis live out there in McKinney too? I feel like some other
Somewhere.
live out there too.
Yeah, Randy lives up north somewhere. I mean, there are like Max Stalling and 1100 Springs and the Tejas brothers all kind of frequent this area. And Austin Cunningham is a cool songwriter that splits his time between here and Nashville. And John Christopher Davis and Scott Sean White. And there's really a surprising community here of songwriters, guitar players, bands.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. Where do you think, so Nashville is considered, I guess, like maybe the capital of country music in some ways, right?
Yeah.
What would be another city, like what's second to Nashville?
In the world of country music, I would say almost the Texas music scene as a whole is sort of the biggest subgenre, because the Americana genre is kind of out there, but if it has a central location, it'd probably be Nashville.
Yeah.
And a lot of the Americana artists are kind of spread out all over the country, but there's some in Asheville, North Carolina, and around different places. But I'd say the Texas music scene, as a tight knit group, is a pretty sizable chunk. And I mean, I guess the center of that would be Austin. So I'd say Austin has a fair run, and Austin's growing.
That's where I'm at. I live in Austin.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of Nashville. Really, the two towns are similar. They're like, they're big enough to kind of have everything that a big city has, but they're still small enough to feel like, it's not this gargantuan sprawling, thing. But although they're both growing rapidly as well. So
that is very true. Austin, I've been here since June of 2014. Basically, I moved here to open a food truck, actually. And
cool. How's that going?
I closed it last year in March. I mean, great. It was going great. I just was tired of it. 5 years of food trucking and catering and restaurants and just I basically can eliminate those 5 years from my life because I didn't have one.
Right.
But it was fine. Honestly, I'm thankful I don't have it anymore because of what's going on right now, because all my other friends who have restaurants and kitchens and whatever, catering business, they are struggling.
Yeah, I bet.
So I would be going through the exact same thing had I not done that. And there was no rhyme or reason, really. Was just tired of it, really, to be honest with you. As a chef, you work a lot of hours. I'm sure you've heard that, right? Chefs work like crazy hours, just like a musician. You work a lot of weird, odd hours. You miss every holiday. You miss every weekend. I mean, that's what you're doing. Yeah. Other people celebrate their stuff. So it became too much. I've been in the industry 15 years and made this pivot to start hosting a podcast. And now this is what I do. I get to talk to great people like you about, amazing things. But yeah, that's interesting about Austin. Yeah, it has changed a lot. Even just in the 6 years I've been here, just to say that out is nuts. But it has changed a lot just in those 6 years. And what's funny is, back in 2014 when I moved here, everyone was like, "No, don't move to Austin. We got enough people, right? Just stop moving here. We don't like anybody moving here." And now 6 years later, they say the same thing, but it's those same people who moved here 6 years ago are now saying, "Don't move here." It's like, it's okay for you to move here, but not for anybody else. Is Nashville kind of that same way where people are like, they want to keep people away? It's a weird dichotomy, right? Like you want to do well, but you're trying to keep people away from it. I don't get it.
Yeah, I mean, Nashville is the same way. And, you know, like when I moved from Nashville in 2008, so that was right at the sort of housing crisis and all that stuff. And so Nashville was growing then, but that kind of put a damper on it. And then, but then in the 10 or 15 years since then, I mean, you had the TV show Nashville, then you had like the success of shows like American Pickers and stuff. And but then you just, I mean, it's just a cool city. And so what you end up having, I think what Austin and Nashville both have is they have these little neighborhoods where um, it still feels quaint. It still feels locally owned, local character, places that have been around for years and years. And they don't, if you have enough people move in, it's one thing to just, okay, a lot of people move in and now those same places are crowded, but it's another thing when they start bulldozing those places and building high rises.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening some in Nashville, and that's what's happening some in Austin. I think that's
100% in Austin.
what
Sure.
what a lot of people object to is when the little mom and pop places that have been there for 50 years get bulldozed. And yeah,
I get it 100%. I totally.
but
Happening on Rainy Street is a very street here in Austin, doing the same thing, taking those old houses. Nashville did the same thing, right? They have these old houses that they turn into bars and stuff,
right.
which is great. And yeah, Austin, Rainy Street specifically is just, I had my food truck on Rainy for almost 3 years, and just a very special place to me. And to see it, it has completely changed just in the 2 years since I've not been there. They already put up a high rise in that amount of time. I mean, the whole street looks so different. So yeah, I get that. That's a tough dilemma to be in, because we want to press forward, right? But at the same time, we want to preserve traditions and
Right.
history. And I'm all for history and preserving traditions, and that's kind of what country music's about too, in a lot of ways. Do you think?
Yeah, I do think that country music has a naturally sort of conservative bent to it. And when I think of the whole idea of conservatism or whatever, I feel like the word conservative doesn't do it great justice, because it sounds kind of negative, like kind of bland, or just like when you think of progressive, that sounds good. Everybody wants progress. Conservative, that sounds like you're just like this greedy, miserly, thing. But it's really more of like a holding on to the good things from the past and not letting them get bulldozed and turned into something that's not as good as what the past had. And I do think that country has more of a mindset of sort of a connection to nature, and sort of a faith and family and country bent, and just sort of a real instruments, people that really know how to play real instruments, people that are telling stories about real life. And all of those things have sort of a timeless, I think when country music is done best, it's universal and timeless. When it's done wrong, it's just pandering and stupid. But all genres have a little bit of that in them somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, there's people, right, that have maybe, I don't know if I'm using the right word, but hijacked the genre in a little bit to sort of add to their music, right? So then you've got this weird country pop. I don't even know what to describe it as, to be honest with you. I'm curious, as probably a natural country musician as yourself, you would say, maybe a real one. What do you think about that type of music? I mean, I know you said every genre sort of has it, but does that stuff sort of bug you? Do you think it's necessary, or you just think it's part of the game? Just what happens?
Well, I've got the excuse me, sorry. So I have like kind of two prongs to that answer, because one of them is sort of what I personally like, and that's just sort of my opinion. And I would say on that score, I like when people are playing real instruments like fiddle and steel and guitar. There's something about the atmosphere of those instruments, mandolin, and I can't play that mandolin and fiddle very well, but I just love I'm in awe of people who can, and I naturally gravitate towards that type of stuff more than I do the electronically generated stuff. And but that's just a matter of personal taste. I think there's another larger issue of sort of the sort of dumbing down of music, or the cheapening of the content, and sort of the lyrical content. And I think that you know a good song, a great song is a great song. And so, I mean, if it's sort of a poppy great song, I'm actually cool with that, as long as it's a great song. But even if it has fiddle and steel guitar, if it's just sort of a cheap pandering song that just sort of plays to our, I guess, sort of basest instincts as human beings, just it's just the songs that are just all about partying, or being young and hot or whatever. Some of that stuff,
Yeah.
I just don't have a lot of patience for it. I can understand um, why a certain demographic is into that. If you're young and hot, maybe you like hearing songs about that stuff. But
What did you listen to?
that
Like,
ain't me.
what were your influences? Like, curious.
Yeah. Well, so I didn't exactly grow up in a musical family. My dad, I mainly listened to what my parents listened to, which my dad was, all he listened to was classical music. That's it. No popular music at all. And then my mom listened to like the soft hits of the 70s, 80s, and 90s, like Michael Bolton and
Yeah.
Gloria Estefan and stuff. And so I just kind of rode that wave for a long time when I was a kid growing up. And then kind of when I got into my own stuff, basically I dabbled in this and that, a little Duran Duran, a little Enya, a little this, a little that, just whatever I came across, maybe heard in a movie or something like that. And then one day when I was old enough to get the keys to the car, after church, I'd be like, "Mom, can I have the keys to the car?" And I just go sit in the car and be antisocial. And I would turn on the radio and I'd flip around and I found the Bob Kingsley country countdown. And I I had never listened to country music before, so I guess I was about 16, and listened to the Bob Kingsley countdown and kind of heard, Colin Ray and Garth Brooks and Randy Travis and Travis Tritt and Reba McEntire and Trisha Yearwood, and just all the whole 90s country thing kind of sucked me in, because it had really good lyrics. I could understand what they were saying. I mean, I like pop music, but a lot of pop music, it's all about the beat and the music itself, the timbres and the textures in the music, and oftentimes you either can't understand what they're saying or you have no idea what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And country music, sort of, they were like speaking plainly in a way I could understand, but it was clever, it was funny, it was heartfelt, it told stories. And so I kind of got into country music there a little bit in high school and college, but I was the only one out of all my friends really in high school or college that listened to any country. And so my knowledge of it was very limited, mainly to just what mainstream radio was playing. So I went to school in Abilene, Texas, at Abilene Christian University, and I didn't know anything about the Texas music scene, or I never heard Pat Green or Jack Ingram or any of the guys that were around at that time, Robert Earl. I've discovered all that stuff later. But so, yeah, all my friends, this was the 90s, so all my friends in college were all listening to like Pearl Jam and,
Yeah.
U2 and Alanis Morissette and stuff.
Yeah. And you didn't play guitar at this time? You hadn't?
I played just as I picked up a guitar when I was 17, and I was I had grown up playing piano, but just classical music on sort of like typical piano lessons, and singing in church. I grew up in the Church of Christ, so we have a cappella singing, congregational singing. Everybody sings, and everybody sings 4-part harmony and stuff. So definitely grew up around harmonies and singing, but didn't play, only played piano at home, and then picked up the guitar, and I was very mediocre, still am. I've improved a lot. I've been working hard on my guitar playing, especially the last few years. I'd like to be a flat picker someday, but it's hard. Yeah, I was just in college. I was just strumming around and started writing songs. Just did it for fun. Just, I will say, songwriting has always kind of come natural to me. I just have ideas kind of popping in my head, and
Yeah.
I like singing, and so I just kind of flesh them out. And so I did that as a hobby in college, and made a couple of little super cheap, low budget, didn't know what I was doing records, and just sold them around campus for like $5 each, and
It's hustling, right? I mean, that's how you got to do it in the
yeah,
beginning. You got,
hustling.
yeah.
Oh, I used to carry them around in my backpack with a sign. I had a sign on my backpack that said, because it said I had number cards, and so it would say like 976 left.
Yeah.
And that's all it said. And then people would come up and say, "What's that sign for?" And I'd be like, "Oh, I have my own CD. They're $5." And then I'll take one, and then I would change it to 975 left.
That is awesome. I never heard that. That's a great idea.
Yeah, it worked. I sold all 1,000 of them that way, just walking around campus.
Wow, that's amazing, to be honest with you, right? Like, that's actually amazing to sell all of those. Gosh, that's so. Was it maybe the feedback you got from people that kept you going, right? Or was that thing where people listened to, like, damn, this is really good, so that gave you sort of confidence, strength to be like, shit, maybe I can do this?
Yeah, basically people were digging the songs. I've always sort of, my forte, I guess, is writing these kind of heartfelt songs that like get people's heartstrings. So I had a couple of songs that, would make people cry or tear up or whatever. And it's not, I guess for a lot of people, there's not all that many songs that do that. So I would get good feedback like that from people. And I just played at little on-campus, this was ACU, so no drinking. We weren't allowed to go to bars. The dean used to go around to the bars and look for ACU parking stickers on cars in the parking lot. Yeah, oh yeah, and take down the number.
Oh shit.
Yeah. So I didn't play at any bars. I didn't put together a band, but I just played solo acoustic coffee house stuff. And I met Aaron Watson there. Aaron Watson was...
I just talked to Aaron Watson 2 hours ago. I just had him on the podcast. Awesome.
Yeah. Well, Aaron was at ACU with me, and I just remember him. We didn't know each other well. I think he transferred in as like a sophomore or something, and he might have been a year above or behind me. I can't remember. But I just remember him coming up to me in the campus center and introducing himself and giving me might have been a cassette tape. It might have been a CD, but it might have been a cassette tape of some songs that he had written. He was just learning guitar. I remember he took guitar lessons from the guitar teacher there on campus, and he was wanting to know my opinion because he'd heard me at one of these little on campus coffee houses, and he liked my stuff. So I just vaguely remember that. I just remember thinking that it sounded like country music to me, and I told him to keep doing what he was doing. And then when I moved back to Texas in 2008, after spending 9 years in Nashville, I found out that he was still doing music, and I went to go see him, and he had a tour bus, and he had people singing along to his songs. And I was shocked because up there in Nashville, I hadn't heard anything about him. Of course, this was, 15 years ago now, 12 years ago now.
Wow. Oh, that's amazing. Did you see a big shift from, gosh, because you were in Nashville, in the early 2000s, so you got to see that shift from like social media and internet and how people, put out music and stuff. What was that change for you? Or, just curious what you think about all that.
Yeah, it's been kind of brutal. I moved to Nashville in 1999, basically to like be Alan Jackson, right? And that was there were two major things going against me. Number one, the culture in general was shifting away from that style of music. It was kind of like, going more pop and more bro country, and in some ways has been ever since. I think the pendulum is starting to swing back now. And then the other thing is the technology was against me as well, because, the 90s was the heyday of selling physical records in Walmart and Best Buy and everything. And the industry really went into a tailspin in 99. And eventually, for a while, it just looked like the music industry might not survive. And then after a few years, then iTunes came along and started selling downloads. So it's like, oh, okay, we can, they basically sued everybody that was file sharing. And now we have an actual alternative where people could pay $1 a song. Okay. But it destroyed the album. Some people were upset about that. I remember Garth being upset about that. And because now people don't have to buy the whole album, they can just buy one song. And so anyway, the downloads were not anywhere close to what the album sales had been. And then now, since then, we've moved into a streaming culture, and I think that's where it's going to start to level out. I mean, that's even 20 years ago. I kind of thought, once there's high-speed internet everywhere, you won't have to have all that stuff on your phone. There'll just be some big, huge database of all music that's ever been recorded, and you just subscribe to that, and you'll just be able to listen to anything you want, whenever you want. And that's pretty much what Spotify and things like that are turning into, Apple Music and everything.
Yeah.
And so I think, so now now the business is changing, because as people switch more and more to streaming, there's lots of different ways that affects things. For one thing, I feel like a lot of people are starting to use streaming somewhat in place of radio. I'd say radio is, like, as far as just if you're just going to get in your car and just listen to music, some people these days might turn on the radio, but if you're a Spotify or an Apple iTunes, you can just turn on that and listen to some playlist that's generated by them, or some radio station that's generated by them. You don't have to have any ads. So a lot of people are switching over to that. Well, when that happens, the record label and the artist are getting paid off of that, not just the songwriter. The songwriter is also getting paid. But see, on radio play, only the songwriter is getting paid off of that. And so record labels have...
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So record labels have never made any money off of radio play directly. All the royalty money goes to songwriters and publishers, who are the owners of the song, the actual song copyright.
Yeah.
But as people start streaming more now, it's actually, the record labels are starting to see the light of day, a light at the end of the tunnel, because now you have, like, for instance, if you think about a group like the Eagles, they probably don't sell a ton of CDs or vinyl or whatever anymore. I'm sure a few, but not a ton. But they probably get streamed. They get played on the radio all the time, and they probably get streamed all the time. And the record labels are starting to see that streaming income now as far as income over time from a catalog, right?
Yeah.
So the record labels own these catalogs of sound recordings of albums, and those albums now are getting streamed, and the record labels are getting that streaming money, whereas they did not get the radio money. And so another thing is that independent artists typically don't get the radio money as much either, because typically the way the radio money gets distributed to the songwriters is that they do a survey. And if you're only getting a little bit of radio play, like on local stations, you're probably not going to show up on the survey. So a lot of the money just ends up going to the big name songwriters. But on Spotify, on the digital economy, they can keep track of every single little, right? It's big data. They can keep track of every single exact spin. And so, it's still just a trickle of money, but at least it's a long-term trickle, right? So over time,
And it's transparent. You can see everything and know where
Yeah,
it's going.
right. Ideally, it's like it is a pain because the statements are like 100 pages long, and I don't know whoever has time to audit that junk.
Oh my God.
But yes, theoretically, there is hopefully a level of transparency. The next thing I'm interested in and curious about is whether the internet can ever live up to the potential of maybe getting rid of gatekeepers and letting just people determine what music is popular, which would be really interesting because in the past, definitely in the 90s and before, you had to be on you had to be on a major label to get radio play, and so you had these gatekeepers that kind of chose who the public gets to hear.
See what you're saying.
These days it's possible that you put out some music and it gets a little bit of popularity, and then it gets added to some playlists and it gets a little more popular, and then it gets heard by more people, and then and what they can do these days is they can look at the data and they can see what music is growing in popularity, and then that music tends to then get added to more playlists and get more exposure. So like for instance, my band, Hill Country, I had this crazy idea a couple years ago to just start a band, even though I've been a solo act for my whole career up to this point. But started a band, called it Hill Country, and because of COVID, we weren't able to afford to get a publicist or a radio promoter. We kind of needed to hold on to every penny that we had, and so we just slapped it up on the internet, the album, and put it on Spotify and iTunes. And a guy named Luke Combs tweeted about us, and he's like one of the biggest artists in mainstream country, and he just heard it. Turns out he's been a fan of mine for a while, and he just heard about the album through an online review, and he just checked it out and he liked it and he tweeted about it. And then Spotify added us to some playlists, and so now we're seeing our listenership grow and grow. And we don't have a label, we don't have a manager, we don't have any of that stuff. And so I'm interested to see if that can be something that happens in the future, where maybe the public itself determines what's popular, and you don't necessarily have to have the approval of any different gatekeepers. I don't know. I think there'll always be a need for some sort of curated list or a gatekeeper or something. And there's also this weird dynamic where people tend to like what's already popular, and they tend to like what they hear repeatedly. And so there's sort of a circular thing that happens with popularity, where what's already popular becomes more popular, and it's weird how all that happens. But I think it is at least possible these days to like Lil Nas X. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of that song and everything, but that's a good example of Old Town Road. I'm pretty sure he just slapped that up on a website, and it got a ton of listens, and then became a huge hit.
Yeah, massive hit. I mean, I think you're right. I think there's a blending of sorts, right? The pie is just getting divvied up differently. So I think, like you said, not one is going to go away or one is going to take over. They'll both just simultaneously exist, which is great for independent artists that now see there is an avenue that they can put out their own music, their own content. Maybe it doesn't reach as much people, but you can make more money, even probably potentially, because it's all yours and you own it all, and that sort of thing. But you actually, with the internet, you technically, theoretically, you have the potential to reach the whole world almost, right? Anybody that's connected to the world, and that kind of reaches anybody can have. And I think that's very unusual. YouTube is a great example of something you're saying, where you'll see some show, right? That's a national show. It's on TV, whatever. And let's say it gets 1 million viewers an episode. There are people on YouTube who get millions of views per video they put out. They literally have a wider reach than some huge company putting out this massive show, that big budget, 50 people on the crew, and you've got just one guy in his basement, streaming from just some regular camera. That's amazing to me. I think what I hope is that doesn't end. I hope that the powers that be, the gatekeepers, as you've so eloquently called them, because I think that's exactly what it is. I hope that they don't find a way to stop that, to make it to where it costs you to post on YouTube or something, or it costs you to, you know what I mean? Like that will be where the downfall is. If we can just keep that line open, it's sort of, and I know it's a double-edged sword because it means anybody can get their music out there, right? That's a good thing and a bad thing, but at the same time, if your stuff's good and you have a good song, and it will find its way around, I think. I think if it's good enough, it will, get around. And if you keep doing it, those seeds that you're planting can come back later. Like you said, Luke Combs had known you before, right? And I'll guarantee you that had an influence on him retweeting that, because, I know this guy before. He's got this new band. They're awesome, right? So there's this whole thing behind it. And look what a retweet can do for people, a tweet or an Instagram post, or that power is in the power of the poster. And I think it's great that it's not some company. I like that we have more control over it, and I like independent artists, and you do your own stuff and you put it out. And I talk to so many musicians like that, and they love it. I don't think they would change it if they could, to be honest with you, even if it reached more people, because again, they own everything. They control it. The creativity, they get to, decide, their image, their brand.
Right.
I just think that freedom has to be great.
Yeah. I've been, thinking about writing a little something. I don't know if I ever will actually write it and put it out, but basically how the internet broke the music business and made it better than ever. And so in like around 99, it really felt like the internet had maybe broken the music business, and that maybe music was never going to be valued the way it was, and we were never going to have big budgets for people to go out and make amazing music like they did. But these days, I think another way that the internet helps is through crowdfunding. And so we're doing a thing. Hill Country's doing a thing on our website where if people sign up basically to subscribe to our music, or you could think of it as being our patrons, or whatever, however you want to think of it. It's $5 a month, or they can choose more if they want. And then in return from that, we're giving people all the new music that we make as we make it, right? So when I write a new song, I just record it on my phone and post it there in the audio vault, and people can start listening to the song sort of in its naked infancy. And then when we go into the studio and we record it, as soon as we have a rough mix, we can let them hear that. As soon as we have a final mix, we let them hear that.
Dude, that's awesome. I've never heard of that. That is so cool.
And then what we do is, when we have enough new songs that are completely finished, we'll go ahead and make that public and put it on the regular channels. But in the meantime, our hardcore fans and supporters, we're literally using their monthly donations as our recording budget. So we're just treating them the same way we would treat our record label or our manager. Just we did this with y'all's money. Here's what we did. Bring them along for the.
Know that they're way more appreciative than those record labels, right?
Yeah. And what's cool about it is that when it's distributed like that, because so like a long time ago, you had music patrons that basically made it possible for an artist to not be digging ditches, but to focus on, writing the hymns for church or whatever. And it would be typically some rich family or government official or bishop or something taking care of them. The only problem with that is if that guy dies or decides he doesn't like your latest music, whatever, you're screwed. But this way, when it's a distributed patron model, it feels very secure from an artist standpoint, where if your new project doesn't float somebody's boat, as long as it's good enough in general, as long as enough people get it, it's not like one person. I get nervous when any one person is paying all my bills, right? That's scary, because what if that person goes away?
You're
But
right.
if you have even just a few hundred fans giving you $5 a month, that's really enough for us to do our music our way. And it's very freeing, because we're not having to worry about what kind of music we need to make to get on the radio. We're not having to worry about definitely not having to try to worry about getting signed and getting into Best Buy or whatever. And the other thing I love about it too is that I like the instantaneous satisfaction of sharing new music with at least a small group of fans. Because typically for me, I'll write a song, and then 6 months to a year later, I'll have enough songs where we'll go into the studio and record it. And then oftentimes it's 6 months to a year later that the album finally comes out, and maybe a certain song gets on the radio. So usually, like the song we're working right now on radio, just to Texas radio, is called Dixie Darlin'. I wrote that song 3 years ago.
Wow.
And so there's always this, and it just came out really for sale to the public, in April. And so there's always this huge delay, and whatever music that you're normally talking to people about and promoting is usually 2 or 3 years behind the actual music that you're creating right now, which is typically what you're most excited about because it's freshest. But this way, with our hideout members, we call them hideout members. It's the Hill Country Hideout. And with our hideout members, we just post that stuff immediately. And I think what we're going to start doing in September is we're just going to commit to releasing a song a month, fully recorded, mixed, mastered, everything, a song a month. And then that way our subscription members will just get a song a month. And like I said, they'll get the rough mixes of all of it as we go along.
I love that thing. I think that's so cool.
And then that way we get to share with people and start getting a little bit of that feedback, and that helps us even figure out, like, by the time we build up 10 or 12 songs, it kind of helps us. We've already tested the waters a little bit with some of those songs, and we have a little bit of an idea of maybe which one is like catching people's ear the most, which one we might want to spend money on to promote further, which is, I hate trying to read people's minds, but when you have a finite promo budget, you got to pick one song.
Got to do something.
And you're just trying to look in your crystal ball and figure out which song people want to hear. And I don't know. I like them all. I wrote them. I don't know what you like. I don't know who likes. So it's nice to have the hideout members to just kind of be our sounding board and just, see what they say,
Plus I know that they love, like, access, right, to the band, right, or to, you as an artist,
right,
getting that behind the scenes information, right, getting the songs as they progress, and they get to see how the song changes, and, right, what decisions were made. And dude, that's the new way. That's the new way, right? You've got Patreon members for podcasts. They do the same thing for podcasts, and
right.
And I love it. I think it's, as a fan, you get to put your money where you really want it to go and support who you really want to support. And it goes directly to that person.
Directly, right. No middleman.
Yeah, there's no middleman. There's no avenue. There's no, I hope, like when you buy an album, like you said, Best Buy, right? Like, so let's go back to those days when you used to go to Best Buy and look through the albums and buy them. That money, you thought, right? Oh, this artist is going to get my $15. Nope. Right. To the record label, and then it gets, who knows what they actually get at the end of it. But I love this Patreon, and I like that there's levels of it, so you can commit as much as you want. Like, I only got $5 a month, or you know what, I love, they're my favorite band ever, I'm giving them $25 a month so I can have that VIP. I love it, man. I'm so happy to hear that artists like yourself and other artists are leveraging that, because I think that's a new way. I also think live streams moving forward. Have you done any for the pandemic, and how do you see that, working into your revenue streams moving forward?
Yeah. Live streams are an interesting animal. I've been trying to think how I feel about it, because it's like, um, it's weird because, when we do a live show, there's no question that that's fun. I love doing live shows. We can only be in one place in the known universe on any particular night, and those people that are there in that room with us, we have a shared experience, and that's fun. The live stream on the internet is different because theoretically anybody in the world can see it, and theoretically, like, basically every other artist that is live streaming that night, it's like we're all in the world's largest honky tonk and we're all playing at the same time. The world's largest honky tonk, right? So you can come see Hill Country, or you can go down the hall and see Wade Bowen, or you can go down the hall and see Sonny Sweeney, or somebody, like, literally on any given time, especially when the pandemic first hit. I would just pull on my phone and it was just like, so and so is live, so and so is live. Everybody was live all at the same time. So my first impulse was to feel that it was cheapened somehow, that we were just sort of like so if I do 100 shows a year in 100 different places, that makes sense. If I do 100 live stream shows a year, I don't know, should I do that, or is that just, it feels like you're doing the same exact show in the same exact spot to just whatever other random people happen to listen, but it could be the same people, like, or whatever, maybe it's, and I've also, in going back to the analogy of the world's largest honky tonk, it's like people are just randomly popping in and out at all times. So people will pop in, like when I've got 5 minutes left to sing. I've been singing for an hour and a half, and they'll be like, dude, play Jaden and Jill. It's like, yo, I've been playing for an hour and a half, Yeah. But they don't know that. They just got on their phone and it said Zane Williams is live. So they just got on there, and it's, so it's a weird dynamic. I think the people that are doing it best right now are the people who are kind of sticking to a particular day and time where people can kind of tune in and make it feel a little bit more like sort of a TV show. And there are some people I've seen that are putting in the time and effort to sort of have it be different every time. Either like I think the method that seems to be working best is if you have a special guest. That way, you have a different guest every time, so it's not the same show every time. And you also have the advantage of, at least in real time, you're interacting with your guest, and so there's at least that uniqueness about it.
Sure.
My main problem with just me streaming on the internet is, what makes it any different really from you just watching me on YouTube or anything else. And oftentimes the streaming, in live streaming, the quality is bad. Like, there's technical difficulties and there's lag, and I'd almost rather just like, if I was going to watch somebody that I'm a fan of, say the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, or Jason Isbell or something, like, I could watch him live, and I guess there's a little bit of a novelty to the fact of thinking that, wow, this is actually happening right now. But I could just go watch him with his full band, like, on YouTube at a really nice venue, because I've seen a few like shows like that. Or I could go watch the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band on Austin City Limits Live or something like that, professionally filmed. And so it's kind of like, well, do I really want to spend my time watching them play in their living room, like on their iPhone, or do I want to go watch them on Austin City Limits? And I don't know. I have mixed feelings about the live streaming, but I definitely think that overall the internet, I'm definitely glad we have the internet, because if this whole pandemic thing was going on and we didn't have the internet, that would be really lame. I still don't think that live streams are as good as live shows, but I definitely think that they're worth doing, and I'm doing them. I'm trying to do them, occasionally. I'm a little too lazy to line up a new guest every week and do all that. So I'm letting other people do that.
you know, my theory on this, and look, I'm not a musician, and I don't play live, but my thing would be, but look, I've ran businesses, and anytime you can find a way to, supplement or add something new to what you do, and it doesn't affect what you do well and why people love you. My thing with live streaming, if I was a musician, I wouldn't use it as a main revenue stream, like in that sense, but I would do this. I would start doing small live streams before my live shows behind, in the green room, and do a small, play one song with the band, while he's munching on and we're all singing. It's just kind of this, 10-minute quick live stream, that's going to happen. That's kind of how I would do it, or post live stream right afterwards. Hey, God, we had a great show. Ask me a few questions about the show. We're here in Nashville, whatever that sort of thing may be. Because I totally get, doing a full set and the quality's not there, and that energy's not there between the audience and yourself, and that plays a lot into your performance, I would have to imagine. So yeah, I totally get it. That's what I would do. I would find a way to just get it in there as a supplement, as an addition, right? As a side dish, if you will, to what I do. But no way can it replace a live show, because it's a live show, right? Like, it's that energy is there. How are you on the whole live show things right now? As far as, are you trying to play live shows? Are you trying to get somewhere you can? Are you avoiding it all? How is that going for you?
Yeah, it's been weird. I mean, it's been weird for everybody.
I was talking on his tour bus on his way to a show.
Right.
But, that's what I Zoomed with him when he was on his tour bus, literally on the way to a show. And we had a great conversation about all of that.
Yeah, most of our shows got canceled. We actually have 4 or 5 full band things still on the books right now, that are like at large outdoor venues where people can spread out.
Yeah.
So definitely the advantage goes right now to venues that have a large outdoor space, and the whole drive-in concept, is something that more and more people are doing. Especially large festivals and everything are just trying to go to more of a drive-in format. And I like that idea.
When you say drive-in, because I've seen 2 ways of doing that. So when you say drive-in, I think of, there's also the one like Blake Shelton did, right, where you could do it that way. There was some drive-in that way,
where you go to actual drive-in theaters, and then he's in one location, but he's being broadcast to all the theaters.
But then that's somebody, Kevin Russell from Shiny Ribs. I had him on the podcast, and he literally was on top of a van playing while people were in a field in their cars, and it was tuned through an FM receiver. Right. So the same way as a drive-through, but it just, or drive-in.
You're actually there, yeah.
Yeah, you're there. You see him, playing. I'm, I don't know. I thought that was cool.
Yeah, I think that's going to be pretty common for the next little while, because you can. So there's 2 ways of doing the in-person model. You can either just have a regular sound system and just have people basically sit on their tailgate, or put chairs in the grass next to their car or whatever. Or essentially, I would almost call that the tailgate model, where people are essentially tailgating, and then you've got a stage set up and a regular sound system you're playing. Or then you can supplement that also. You can do or the FM transmitter deal, where you send your signal to an FM shortwave, short distance transmitter, and that way people can tune it in on their car stereo. I haven't done enough research to find out if there would be a sound delay there, where you'd have to either pick one or the other, or if you could do both at the same time, if people could choose whether to listen inside their car or outside. But it seems to me like, there might be an advantage of people being able to sit in their car with the AC on. But then I'm kind of imagining, like, imagine you're in a field with 100 trucks and they're all running, and I mean, it's like, well, everybody's just sitting there in their AC listening. I don't know. I don't know for sure. And then plus, if it's large enough, you're gonna have to. Those people are gonna have to go to the bathroom somewhere. So those
drinks, eating.
Yeah, drinks and eating. So a lot of the places that I've been seeing having the most success doing this are venues and restaurants that already have bathroom capacity and serving drinks and maybe some to-go food or some type of capacity, but they have either a large parking lot or a large field next to them or a large outdoor amphitheater, and those type places are able to put on shows right now. And I've also been toying with the idea, especially if I get desperate for money here in a little while, depending on how long this all goes, of just finding a fan that has like a field, an acre or something, where I can just sell 15 car spots or 15 or 20 car spots, and that's it. And then I just set up a couple speakers and everybody just sits out beside their car, or maybe I do the FM transmitter thing, either one, and just do small drive-in things, just field parties basically. So to answer your question, we have a few full band things, and then I've been doing more private party, backyard party type deals. And to be honest, there's not a whole lot of social distancing that goes on at those things, but it's like, well, I got to make money, and
I get it.
I'd rather do that than I can make more money doing that, doing one show like that than I could in a couple or 3 weeks of some sort of manual labor or something. So, somebody
probably, the band is probably social distancing and doing everything. It's the people in the crowd, right, that are not. I mean, I already know what's happening. Like I can.
The type of person that would, hire a musician for their backyard party, invite all their friends. That type of person is probably not all that worried about COVID. And I mean, it is a free country, and it's
private property.
I'm in favor of people being grown-ups and making their own decisions, and basically, if I make a decision to be there, then it's I'm there because it's worth it for me to be there, and so I've done a few of those things, and it's fun. I mean, I definitely miss playing for people more and seeing people and being around people, so I definitely have fun. And then usually what I do is I try to social distance the best I can, but dude, if somebody wants a picture with me, man, I just can't turn that down. I just and then I just kind of
I'm lucky he wants pictures with me. I'm lucky.
Yeah. If I go to a show like that and I'm around, people, then I try to stay away from like my parents and my wife's parents for the next week or so. Just because they're older and stuff. But it is
times.
It is what it is. Yeah. Well, we'll all get through. We'll. It's not going to last forever, but
yeah, we'll get through it, man. We've been through a lot in this country, all of us as Americans. So I no doubt that we'll get through this. I was going to ask, basically, just like how people can get in touch with you online. I just want you to be able to tell people what's the best way for them to, get your music, follow you online, your band, all that sort of stuff. So just go ahead and tell us all that.
Sure. The one-stop shop would be my band's website, which is hillcountry.band. So www.hillcountry.band. Sadly, we're fixing to have to change our name. So there ended up being a trademark issue with the phrase Hill Country. that we didn't know about. It's my bad.
Are you
It's
kidding me?
no, and
That
it
is
the reason I missed it is because it's not another band that owns that trademark. It's another business that's in a different area of business, but they do own the trademark within the realm of sound recordings and live performances. And I just didn't notice that because they are not a band. So now that we have discovered that, I'm glad. It's better to find out now than later. We've only been touring as a band since January, and we put our first album out in April or whatever. So we're gonna have to change our name and switch over to a different website. But hillcountry.band will forward to whatever that new website is. Anyway, www.hillcountry.band is where to go right now, and that's where the hideout is, and then that has links to all of our social media. We're on all the different social media platforms and Spotify and iTunes. We've been getting some Spotify love here lately. They've been putting us on some playlists, and
That's all.
Yeah. Google and ye shall find.
Right, Google. Is that everything on Google?
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome, man. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us today, and God, just a great conversation, man. I really appreciate you just being open and honest and sincere, and about everything that is on your mind. And I know your listeners and your fans appreciate that. It's probably why they like you to begin with, to be honest with you. But yeah, it's been a really, really great conversation, man, and I really do appreciate it. I've learned a lot actually through this. So my best to your family, your band, your crew members, everyone that you got working for you. My best to you guys. And I know you have to make a lot of difficult decisions and do a lot of different things. So just know that there's people out there just like me that understand those things and support you and want to see you come through all this. So man, so again, just wish you all the best.
I appreciate that so much. Thanks for taking time. And next time we do this, hopefully the restaurants will be open so we can do it over some good food. You can show me some good places to eat down there in Austin.
Man, are you kidding me? I would say, man, I know all the places, and if I can't make that happen, I'll cook. I'm a chef.
Yes.
And so no,
that'll be awesome.
Either way, we'll get you some good food.
Sounds great.
All right, brother. Well, thanks again, Zane. Again, my best to you and yours, and Godspeed, brother.
Cheers.
The Lone Star Plate podcast is produced by Texas Real Food. Go to texasrealfood.com and you can search your city for stores, butchers, restaurants, farmers markets, and more who are using fresh, artisanal, organic sources. It's a fun site that brings all natural options all together. I hope you enjoyed this episode. For more information, go to thelonestarplate.com. I'm your host, Patrick Scott Armstrong. Until next time.